Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC preview of week 6 of the LEC Spring Split as we're heading towards a close already of the LEC. You know, the season is coming to an end, the regular split, before we're heading into playoffs. So the pressure is going to be on more for these teams, even though these wins count just as much as the ones in week 1. Still, the teams now feel really the pressure to perform. So let's take a look at the matches that are going to be played and do some predictions. We start off on Friday with Mad Lions versus SK Gaming. On the scoreboard, you can see that Mad Lions is now at a 7-4 score, whereas SK Gaming is sitting at a 6-5 score. So there's only one win or one loss, depending on how you look at it, separating these two on the board. Overall, I do think that Mad Lions in recent games has looked better than SK Gaming has. I think what you see more with Mad Lions now is that this team is really coming together and finding how they want to play. Whereas SK Gaming overall as a unit is just stepping up more in what they already did. But when looking at this, I value more which team has a higher ceiling because they are reaching that potential. Obviously, in the start of the split, this is a bit shakier, where upsets can more easily happen. But now, this time around, I do think that Mad Lions edges it out over SK Gaming. I think that, especially in the mid lane, there's a big difference. I do not think that Blue has stepped up massively, whereas Humanoid is just not dying as much as he was at the start of the split, but he also is a strong laner, and I think this is a pretty good opportunity for them. I will say, though, SK Gaming has a pretty good chance. I think that their bot lane is super strong as a duo and more consistent, actually, than the one of Mad Lions so far in the split. Now, overall, I do think, as I said earlier, that Mad Lions still has the edge when looking at the team overall. But if SK Gaming can pull ahead in the bot lane and play through this, I think they actually have a reasonable shot. Then we go to XL versus Misfits. This is obviously a match that is going to be a bit more at the bottom of the standings, where XL has a 5-6 score, so that's not too far from the likes of Mad Lions or SK Gaming. But Misfits is sitting at a 3-8 score. Did look better overall in some games, but I still didn't manage to win them. I don't know what's going wrong there, but the team is obviously not performing well. Even if they are in the early game, then for some reason they are allowing teams to climb back. Now, XL is one of the teams with the worst early games, but always finds a way to climb back into the game. Still, I think that given overall shape, you'd be hard pressed to say that XL is not going to win this, because they know much better what they want to do as a team, and Misfits for 5 weeks in a row now has not been able to identify this, so I'm going to give this to XL. Then we have G2 versus Vitality, and while Vitality did beat Fnatic, obviously a big win for them last week, against G2, maybe if G2 really clowns and really jokes around, Vitality is going to have a reasonable shot. But other than this, I think that G2 outclasses Vitality in every single position very easily. And as a team overall, I do expect actually G2 to play more around with compositions, maybe try some champions that they're not too familiar with. And if Vitality stick to what they've learned from their games against Fnatic, but also against Rogue last week, then I maybe, in some fringe scenario, they can pull out ahead early and push G2 too much out of the game. But if there's any team that can come back from any deficit, it's G2. And yeah, I just think this is going to be a very easy win for G2. Then we have Rogue versus Shogun of Fear as the 4th match of the day. Obviously, in the first round, half of the round robin, Shogun of Fear ended Rogue's win streak by defeating them, which was very exciting, obviously, because you could see that this was the rise of Schalke, who have since fallen off quite a bit, and also because it showed that, well, there's no undisputed 100% win rate best team, because G2 had fallen to Schalke 04 earlier. Now, for Rogue, I think that last week was one of the most dominant weeks in their history in the LEC. They won extremely dominantly against Misfits. I think that's one of the strongest victories, the easiest victory we have seen in the LEC so far. Schalke 04 is obviously at the moment at an 0-4 win streak, at a 4 game loss streak. So that's going to be really difficult for me to predict them to win against what is arguably the second best, I would say, team in the LEC at the moment. You can see that Schalke 04 is not feeling comfortable with how they play. This week it is going to be played on the new patch, which means that we're probably going to see more tank junglers, so maybe Shogun of Fear can find more comfort playing that style, but I still think that we'll need time to adjust, and I think Rogue is more on their game at the moment, so I'm just going to give it to Rogue. Fnatic versus Astralis. Fnatic is looking unstable, to say the least. While they are at 6 and 5, that's, it's a fourth place. They're losing much more than they should. Obviously, going 0-2 last weekend was really painful for them. Against Astralis, though, I do favor Fnatic. I can see Astralis winning it, actually, if they get picks they like. Like, for example, even though Zanzara Skarner has been banned a few times now by teams who are just saying, okay, well, you're good in the champion, we're not going to give it to you. I think he's also a pretty good tank jungle player, enabling his teammates a bit more. Still, individually, Fnatic is so much better. The bot lane of Fnatic is absolutely smurfing it with Hylissing and Upset. Yeah, I mean, if Astralis wants to win this, I think it's through the mid lane, where they have to shut Niski down, who obviously is more of a supportive role in the team overall, but from there, and play maybe through the top side, because Bwipo has been unstable as well, so that's a chance for Astralis to win it, but overall, I think Fnatic is going to win against Astralis. Then on Saturday, we start off with Shogun of Fear versus Misfits Gaming. Misfits Gaming should not come to you as a surprise that I really do not favor them against Shogun of Fear. Even though Shogun of Fear is obviously not playing as well as they were in week 2 and week 3. Week 4 and 5, they lost all their games. Now, I think that when Shogun plays against Rogue, Rogue is just a class above, and Misfits, simply put, is a class below, where you can see that Shogun of Fear has a way they want to play. It's just that in the last 2 weeks, they got punished really hard because their opponents knew exactly what they wanted to do. I think Misfits is not a team that can punish as much what Schalke wants to do. Even if it's a new meta, that should favor Schalke only more, because they can try new stuff. And I think Misfits Gaming is just really poor at countering this. The second game is SK Gaming versus XL, and I think this is a really exciting match, actually. Even though these teams in the LEC, not many people will care about them. Let's be real, most people only care about G2 or Fnatic. Now, SK and XL, I think these two teams are the ones that are going to be fighting for that number 6 spot in the playoffs. And that's why this is very exciting to me, to see how they match head to head and how they are going to be able to try to counter each other. Because in the end, if you want to make it to the playoffs, you have to defeat all your direct opponents who could make it there as well. Let's go over the strengths a bit. I think SK Gaming has a really solid support and a bot lane overall, and their jungler is really good. I think Genox last weekend, obviously on Aatrox, was popping off and showing everybody that he can play that champion very well. Still, I wouldn't say like he's a top tier top laner at the moment. He's okay, he's not gonna hold the team back, and except for the last 2 weeks, last 2 games, I should say, he's not gonna carry them. He has that potential. He has shown that he can do that if he really pops off, but I think that's still too inconsistent at the moment to call him like a good top laner. I think overall in the split he's just been fine. Jungle, I think SK Gaming thinks. I think he's a really good jungler with a lot of potential. But as I've said before, I think the weakest point is in the mid lane. For XL, I think in the top lane, Kryze has been performing very steadily. Dan has been there. I don't think he's been like a super carry jungler. I like that he's being more proactive in his plays and he's trying to dare more and just try to fight for objectives instead of being hesitant. I think that's good progress. In the mid lane, I think Chocolat is a really solid player. Obviously, he will kind of need the Azir to really pop off, but he's stable and definitely a better mid laner than Blue, for example. Bot lane, Patrick is very good AD carry, and often obviously the stable factor on XL, and Torre in the support role is he's just not playing well. He knows it himself as well. Obviously, I've spoken to him about it, but he's just not playing well. Now, as teams go, XL, as I said when I discussed their match against Misfits, their early game is really poor. SK Gaming has the opportunity, I think, to beat XL in this early game and actually use this to their advantage. I think SK Gaming has a real shot at defeating XL here when it comes to snowballing what they had, the lead they gain against XL, because SK's team fighting isn't horrible. It's not great. It's very scrappy. It's still like they're fighting on several plays at the same time. And this is something XL does do better, in my opinion. But I think that XL's early game is going to get punished pretty hard by SK Gaming. We saw SK Gaming actually ambush Gilius, and they played that early game pretty well. Obviously, it took them a while to convert that into an actual win. But I do think that SK Gaming is going to win versus XL. Now, for a much less detailed answer, I think, just as a side note, that SK Gaming versus XL warranted that discussion because, as I said, I think those 6 players, so they are gonna fight for that 6th spot in the playoffs. Vitality versus Mad Lions. I'd be hard pressed to say anything but Mad Lions here for the win. Vitality got a win obviously last weekend, and they're making that progress, but overall it's still very poor. They are a very hit or miss team where even in their hits they're not always gonna win. So Mad Lions much more stable, so I predict them to win against Vitality. Then we have Astralis versus Rogue. I favor Rogue heavily in this situation, even though Astralis did make it a bit more difficult for Rogue in their match than I initially anticipated. I still think that Rogue overall outclasses Astralis in every role very easily. And one downfall I could say, as I discussed in a video with Freddy, in an interview which I'll link for you above so you can see what he had to say. I think Rogue's draft have been very risky, which is something they deliberately do, because now is the time to try to learn those and try to adapt and get a feeling of how they want to play new drafts rather than just skill and win in the late game. I think that is something they might try against Astralis, and if Astralis, we've seen before that they really get a good draft. Against Rogue, they played with the Skarnet Thresh combination, where they try to haunt Larsen in the mid lane. I think if they can pull off something similar, maybe Astralis has a chance, but overall, I do think that Rogue just easily wins these. The match of the week is Kings Dynasties, blah, 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 blah. We know it. Fnatic versus G2. Obviously, in the first game they met in the spring split, Fnatic won pretty dominantly against a G2 that was crippled by their internet performances. But Fnatic also was just really playing well, as you have to say this as well, because they really were showing up, and they really were bloodthirsty. Now, overall, when you look at this game, I would like it to be a very close match, but I do not expect this, because I think that G2 is... When G2 loses, they return and they get pretty angry, and not like a tilt angry, but they really want to show, okay, nobody messes with us, and they really win dominantly next. Now, I think against Fnatic, they are going to carry over their frustrations from the loss in the first time these teams met, and really want to, just confirm that G2 is the better team, even if it's just the best of one. So I do think that G2 is going to go out guns blazing, and Fnatic will have trouble meeting their match. Maybe, I think, even though Bwipo has been pretty bad in the last 2 games, I would say that I overall do think that he is one of the players who is really stepping up when it comes to these confrontations, because he really wants to prove himself. So I think the top lane matchup is going to be very exciting between him and Wunder. But then I look at the jungle. I think Jankos has been a better jungler. Look at the mid lane. Caps has been a better mid laner. And look at the bot lane. This is really close, actually, because Mickey and Reckless have been absolutely smurfing it, and so have Hylissang and Upset. So I think in the top and the bot lane is where the fireworks is going to be at. And if maybe the bot lane pulls ahead early and they can use that advantage to go further, or if Bwipo is once again able to carry, Fnatic has a chance. But overall, I do think that G2 will win this. That is it for the predictions for me. Let me know in the comments below what you think the results are going to be, if you agree with my predictions or what matches are that you're excited for. Maybe something else in G2 versus Fnatic. Are you also excited for SK versus XL, which I, to somewhat unreasonable extent, perhaps am. If you also want to play LEC Super Fantasy, you can do so. I created a lobby. I've said it a few times now. Just post your lineup. I post the top 10s of the days on my Twitter. So you get a little shout out there if you want to play. I'll post a link to the lobby in the description below. If you like my content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my stuff, my content, so I'm able to continue doing this. And keep an eye out for more interviews that I'm going to be posting. So have fun this weekend. I really hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you all on Sunday for the LEC recap.